It is. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, to the March 20, 2023 meeting of the Rotary Club of Raleigh under consent Tom Packard, and it's great to see everybody here. All of our members, all of our guests, our featured speakers. I think there's a great meeting planned for today. But as usual, before we complete our meeting, we'd like to start with an invitation. I believe Patty will lead us today. Is that right, Patty? Or Tom? Tom will lead us today, as well as Tom. Sorry, well, look at the sound. You might talk about it, but I'll give this a shot. You guys are not here.
Father, thank you for this day, for this time to be here at Rotary. We appreciate the meals in our bellies, and remember those that don't have meals like this to eat today, or that might not get enough to eat. In particular, any children out there who would love to have the scraps of what we're left over with. We thank you for our camaraderie. We remember those who are alone and who don't have people to eat with, or people to joke with, or people to spend their time with, to share their troubles. We ask that you would be with those folks, to comfort them. We ask that Rotarians all around the world would employ their four-way test as they go about their business in their communities to care for those that are less fortunate than they are, and to contribute in the name of Rotary and in your name as well. We thank you for our time here today and the togetherness that this club shares and the bond that we all enjoy. Amen.
Amen. You'll stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, beautiful stage decide for and work away in celebrating for mountains that rooted lands. I didn't see.
Rotary,
That's so great. Thank you, John. And start. So again, it's great everybody that you're here today. And it's always fun to have guests come to our meetings. So why don't we just recognize some of the guests here today. Samuel Dees will be up later, introduced by Harrison. So Samuel will call you later. But it's very nice to see last week. And perhaps before I forget, but especially today again, Laura, where are you? Laura. It's great to see Laura. Laura is a local realtor and has been here 2 or 3 times now. That's not right. 2? Okay. Great. So welcome again. Okay. And John Hayes, I understand you have a special guest today. Would you care to introduce him, please?
Sure. So I got a phone call today. Said, "Hey, Dad, you want to have lunch?" I said, "I'm sorry, but I got Rotary today." And Charlie also said, "Well, bring differences." So this is my friend Jackson. I'm glad you could come along.
And we had 2 returning guests who first came to one of our service socials at the top of, I think, level 7 bar in North Gibbles, and it was nice enough to help me carry a bunch of snacks that we collected that day out of my car. But Tyler, Chewy, Tyler, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, and you came, originally to Tom, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And remind us what you do, Tyler?
Yeah, so I work for People Office Systems, so we handle all of the technology.
Okay, great, good. And from time to time, we're contacted by people who are out of town and moved here, who are from here, was college here, then gone, but they come home after a while, put some money down and sit together in the community. And one of them is Sandy Chaudhuri. Sandy, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? It's great.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm saying here earlier, one of the few lists was mentioned, that moved away from, the grad. Grew up in the area, so, the whole, what high school years I was thinking about. But looking forward to seeing everyone here and getting involved with our organization.
Great. And that's it. David Sherman is back to this part. I'd like to introduce you again.
Please welcome, David Sherwood, an attorney at law, here with his own practice down on Hillsborough Street, down in the office here at Surrey office. So David Sherwood.
And please don't forget again that the red buckets on our table. If you don't have cash, you can write the number on the monopoly money and put it in, or you can change the coin that you have. All the money we put in, we gather through the end of the year and donate it to corporate members, International Alliance of North Carolina, and it's much appreciated. I happened to look at the total so far this year, and we've collected about $500 for them, just your contributions. So hopefully we get that up to 1,000 by the end of the year. So please keep that in mind. And we have any last week we had a ton at the meeting at NC State. But Charlie kind of called one at the end. Do we have any happy dollars to celebrate? Money goes towards the foundation.
$3 for my daughter to be 3 in late July, and I hope I don't regret paying this, but she is fully potty trained now.
You can't say the same about
$100. One of the most exclusive golf clubs in the country is the Bottom Golf Club in Southampton, Long Island. And every year this club donates 2 rounds of golf to charities. And this year they donated one of them to Different Life International. So if anyone wants to play one of the most exclusive golf courses in the country, it's need to use this club, it's close to $700,000. Yeah, of course, if anyone wants to go to that club, let me know, we're putting it together, we already have some 10 worth of dollars. Yeah, thank you, James.
As a special event,
Second time on the flood. Because many issues here, and some of the cost. Well, Jim and I have 4 children, and they're on back. Our youngest son, Carl, married a lovely woman, Sarah, in Annapolis this past weekend. The love was like this, it was spectacular, and I might hear it on you, I'm a husband in a minute. But when you see your son with a ring on, that's special, guys. Children are blessed.
Everything last week, food, the atmosphere, the speaker, it was perfect. So thanks for a great meeting. Oh, great. Thanks all the way. Thank you.
Barney, are you getting someone else? I got one more. I do want to mention, I hope you noticed in this morning's newsletter that came out, we had something special in there that the organization that James is involved in, the Gift of Life International, just created its 46,000 child in need for heart treatments. And, which is a milestone for them. So take a look at the newsletter. There's a link to the organization there, the good work that they still do. And I did want to add, unfortunately, getting just, we had to have a sports happy hour. Unfortunately, there are no North Carolina teams left in the men's, and so that would have some time. Unfortunately, I'm sort of an adopted party, you'll be able to be in my life, but here's $10 for that. It's all that is my home or UCLA, which is 16, so that's advanced.
Who else ready?
The other 15 and the 316, who am I missing out? Is that okay? I go as far as Michigan State, it will be hard. Well, I think also has for Michigan State. I'm sorry, Michigan State. I'm so Spartans, okay, Michigan State. Next week, we'll see who's progress some more. I'm gonna name, this is a reminder, get consent is fun, friend of ours. We see TV business, with WR, I don't think here from the Virgin Islands or the United States, standards and short. I think we'll serve, we are having the, mentions of the young adults. We, came to the meeting last week, and it's the state. Adam Davis in particular is the Rotary president. He sponsored the Rotary Club in NC State. Anyway, they're coming to our meeting. Representative, number of them, and they're going to talk to us about what they're doing, how they appreciate us supporting them, but really what they've been doing and how well they've been working this year. No meeting after that, reached a break. We have Neil Isaac, a business transaction expert. Yeah, I believe Tommy and David know that's going to talk about our economy and what's like to do business these days. And then one of the really interesting talk near the end of April is the head of the Raleigh Sister Cities program. Now, I don't know how many of you make this. No, this is land to the news. The city of Newark, New Jersey, entered into a Sister Cities program. They're full blind. They went through all the process, paper, everything, and a whole ceremony where the representatives made the agreement, they helped them out, the press was there. Forget the name of the country, I think it was more Middle Eastern, if I recall. They were dressed in their traditional native garb, and proclamations, local news covered everywhere. Country didn't exist. No, they didn't do that. Thing on the city of Newland. I'm pretty sure the country is a real country. Let's see, before you sign it. So that's all that came to mind after we read this. There we go. Didn't want to honor a longtime member as a time to time. Randy Frazier has been with us since July of 1984, 39 years, past president, immeasurable contribution to our club. Randy, congratulations to you. Thanks. Just a short quick note, in our Rotary year, we always have traditionally clean times financially because we had to pay a lot of dues to Rotary National District. Start of the quarter, we're now at the end of our quarter. For those of you who have some dues, you haven't quite got around to paying yet, please pay them so that we can keep meeting here, have these nice lunches, have offsites, etc. So that's just kind of a reminder. I did want to say happy spring to everybody. It's not spring yet. Spring doesn't happen until 5:40 p.m. tonight, with the equinox from the sun finally to see equator. So tomorrow will be the first day of spring. I'm taking some personal privilege, and that I know a lot of you or your spouses, your significant others, love the garden around here, we get to talking to you about it. There's a great sale on azaleas, sponsored by the Gardeners of Wake County, a club that I'm involved in. It's at Fairgrounds. It runs from March 30 to April 8th. They're competitively priced all sorts of azaleas, even deciduous azaleas, which are hard to find. So this is a point of personal privilege. Feel free to go out to the Fairgrounds and pick up some azaleas if you'd like. So that starts soon. Next is a feature that we're bringing back. We did not do Nosy Neighbor with Chancellor Woodson this week, despite that might have been a good idea. But we ran out of time. But company has an announcement, and then we'll lead us in Nosy Neighbor debate time.
Very good, very good. Thank you, guys. Well, my announcements aren't as exciting as topics, but for those of you that want azaleas, they're on sale new. Yeah. Next week, we're gonna do something really cool. We've talked about it for a club for a long time, we've had it back and forth. Next week's gonna be the first week of our new 50-50 raffle. So during the club meeting, we're gonna come around, we'll go table to table selling tickets. You can pay by cash, you can pay by check, you can pay by square, and maybe some other ways. I won't get ahead of myself, but we're trying to accept your money in any way you can give it to us. But we're looking forward to this 50-50 raffle. We're gonna try and build it up. The club's gonna keep half of that money. It's gonna be a great win for the club and a great win for a member of the club each week as we draw a winning ticket. So I hope you guys will all come ready to make a huge success out of our first week of the next week. We're gonna make it fun. So you bring your money and we'll try not to publicly humiliate you if you don't participate, but you know. We're looking forward to participation. So, and if that's anything you got any questions about, hit me anytime. Today's Nosy Neighbor, we're doing something really cool. It's a great day to have John Cates up. John's son is here with him today, and so it's just a perfect opportunity for him to come up and talk to us a little bit. And so you guys please welcome John Cates. As you may know, John's a fairly new member of the club, still got his red badge. We'll get him converted over soon enough. But before we get going too far, John, why don't you tell them a little bit about professional line of work, family, things like that.
Okay. So I've been living in Raleigh, I think, since '91. I grew up in Chapel Hill. I'm a lot of confusion because I grew up with Alabama. I went to NC State. My family is all in Orange County, and I have a 100-acre farm there. We keep the ram, so it's Ramesses is a member of the family. My cousin's Alabama. So about 10 years ago, my corporate career came to an end. I worked for a hardware company that wanted to be a technology company. That didn't quite work out. I got my real estate license and I worked for a company called Transon. We do auctions of different sorts, and I've also been doing some buildings.
Awesome. Yeah. And John, why don't you tell us a little bit, the one thing in your life that makes you feel most proud?
Well, you set this one up. So, I'm like, okay, so you pick Nosy Neighbor Day. The day I walked in with my son, Jackson. So I think I can embarrass him while he's here. So here you go, Jackson. So it was about 20 years ago. Jackson has two siblings, a twin sister and an older brother. In Martin Middle School, Jackson and his twin sister both made the 8th grade basketball team. And we were proud and we were cheering and it was so awesome. And then it was time for the awards banquet. And they start calling out the awards. And they did the guys first for some reason. And they get, most valuable player, all these different things. And there's no Jackson. They finally get to Sportsman of the Year. And it's Jackson Cates. And we're so proud and happy. But then we realized, oh God, Jackson's sister played basketball on the girls' team. If Jackson gets the sportsmanship award, how are we going to console that? Because she will never believe it anyway. And so, anyway, came along and went through all the honors, and finally sportsmanship of the year was Megan Case. So that's probably one of my proudest parent moments when both of my children got the sportsman of the year.
That is fantastic.
I think Megan was downhill after that.
So career-wise, you've done some different things. What's the most memorable experience, the most memorable moment, whether it be good or bad?
Yeah.
What stands out for you?
So, I got to travel internationally, with the last company I was with, and we got to go to Germany and Italy quite a few times. And I got to take a customer to Italy one time. And we got there and I had to, his equipment wasn't ready. So I told him, I'll go to this factory, we'll be working some things, entertain yourself. So he was in this little town called Città de Castello, it's a little wall city. When I get back, he says, I know where we're going to. Where's that? He said, it's this little restaurant. I said, well, how did you pick it? He said, they have the most empty wine bottles in the recycling bin. I knew it was gonna be the place. So we go to dinner with some other people from the company, and when that's done, he says, come on, we're going, let's go have some fun. We go and we go into the basement, and there are very few people there. In fact, it's really kind of a family gathering. And they had the owner of the restaurant had family from Sicily there, and Mama was back in the kitchen, and they just made us feel like brothers and brought us in, and Grandma was bringing out steak and pizza and different things. And then finally, they told my client, his name was Ted Grimaldi, and it's in Italy. So they carry him up to the street, and he thinks he's going to get mugged. And he comes down, and he's got this accordion, and he's got this hat that they got out of the trunk of a car, which he doesn't have to play. And then this 70-year-old guy takes it from him, and he starts playing the accordion and singing. And he could look at you with those love eyes, you know, you wow, I could not plan this. It was awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Guys, if you haven't spent time with John yet, he's a new member, find some time, get together with him, get some lunch outside of here, some dinner, go see this Ram, wherever it is, whatever you want to do. John,
Thanks. Thank you, John. It's been a sludge. A good reminder, please. One or two, let Linda know what committee, all beginning, finance, membership, service, etc. Carrie, I will call up now to talk about both fundraising, and I have a couple slides that she gets to it about her weekend.
Thank you, President. My name is Terry Suffern. I am President-elect for Raleigh and this year's fundraising chair. Harrison, could you go ahead and move over? I'm going to talk about this past weekend first. Eric Larson, our club's president nominee, I also know him as Dad. I went to Carolina Pets this weekend. Pets is president-elect training seminar. So it's a lot of different districts from all across North Carolina, most of South Carolina, a few in Virginia, and there were actually a few people or a few clubs represented from Georgia. So they get everybody together and you go through a day and a half of training in preparation for your year as president. Our Carolina Pets is one of the biggest training seminars in all of Rotary. So we get the honor of having the incoming Rotary International president come speak to us. And he is on the screen right there. His name is Gordon McKinley. He is a wonderful man. He spoke to us on Friday night about his vision for the 2023 through 2024 year. And you'll see on the screen that Dad and I, we look exactly alike. We resemble each other a lot, especially the older I get. And then Gordon on the right with his lovely wife Heather right there between Dad and I. We got to meet him, and he's just this gracious, wonderful man. His vision for the year includes two main themes, and that is the foundation and membership. For the foundation, he's really going to work on raising awareness of that. And a good example of the wonderful work the Rotary Foundation does internationally is through the End Polio Now campaign, which began in 1988. It has decreased the number of polio cases across the globe by 99.9%. In fact, for this year, 2023, and I double checked this morning, there have been 0 cases of polio since January 1st, 2023. And the 2 countries those have been occurring, those wild cases of polio, are in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And that every Rotarian in this room has played a part in that. So I just want to take a moment and a round of applause for all of you Rotarians that have helped accomplish that. So this coming year, we're going to talk about the foundation, continue to talk about it, and membership. And as always, we want to attract new members. Our new members, we want to get them engaged in the club. But he also mentioned taking care of our current membership. And that rings really true to my heart. I've made lifelong friends in this club. I want to be able to help new members get involved in the club. So we're really going to think about ways to do that. Had a chance to talk with James Lalancha last week. He had a great idea of having kind of a business spotlight at some meetings, just on business successes. So we're going to do things like that. Gordon also shared a very personal story about mental health. And this weekend, I had multiple conversations with my 10-year-old son about suicide. An 8th grade girl that went to his school committed suicide last week, and it just really hit close to home. So we're going to talk about this mental health issue. Like I said, Gordon, it's something that has hit his family, and that is one of his emphasis for the year. We had 3 other keynote speakers. Our own Eric Larson was actually quoted in a few of those speeches on his view of servant leadership. I don't want to mess up what he said. We're going to talk to him afterwards. It's a great quote and a great way to approach being a servant leader. So we had a great time, all charged up about this coming Rotary year. If you have any suggestions, you want to talk to me, I'd love to go get coffee, lunch with you, email anybody on the leadership team, give us a call, whatever. So very excited. So fundraising, please keep on holding the date for May 11th, Thursday, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We are narrowing down on the venue. So that will be coming out sometime this week, exactly where we're going to have it. So keep your ears open. It's going to be a great time. Theme is wine tasting. So with that, hand it back over to President Tom.
Thank you, Chaudhuri and Eric, for attending the PETS President Training Seminar. It's an exciting time, and sounds like you got a lot of great ideas, made a lot of great contacts for next year. So that's fantastic. Here again. Next, Harrison Turner, our membership chair.
Happy Monday, everyone. Before we bring up Sam, I want to bring about a challenge to the club. I think our club loves challenges. Richard is a perfect example of that. He challenged us with the book drive and we blew out the water. So as we've just heard from Terry, that membership is going to be a big push next year. Everyone take just a quick second and think of someone that you see either work with or know with, or go to church with, that doesn't know about Rotary, who would benefit from being a Rotarian. And then what I would challenge you to do is invite them to the Service Social coming up on the 30th of this month. Give them an opportunity to come out, see what Rotary is about, fellowship with us, as well as supporting a good cause. So throwing that challenge out there. With that, we'll have Sam. Sam, you can come up front, please. Today we have the pleasure of bringing Sam Deeds to his first reading. Sam is being sponsored by our very own nosy neighbor, Tom Caller. I said your name for Sam is from Pembroke, North Carolina, and is a registered member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. His father has been an attorney with Legal Aid in North Carolina for 30 years. He currently leads the Legal Aid Disaster Relief Project, and his dedication to justice for the poor and disadvantaged is what has inspired him to become a lawyer. Sam graduated from NC State with a degree in English in 2018, and then graduated from the Law University School of Law in 2021. He is currently active in the Wake County Bar Association, the North Carolina Bar Association, will be admitted to practice in the Eastern District of North Carolina Federal Court. He's coming up Wednesday, right? So congratulations on that. His hobbies include golf, which I feel like every attorney or anyone in law, golf's on there. History, poetry, and works with J.R.R. Tolkien. What excites you about coming to Richmond?
Just the opportunity to get involved, and meet new people, just get out of that. After 2020, once get out of the apartment house, back into the community.
Well, if you haven't had an opportunity to meet Sam, connect with him, please meet with him after the meeting. It's a great guy. Looking forward to having him part of our club. Yeah, thank you so much. Quick plug, we have our next service social at Stir, which is over in Woodfields on March 30th, which is Thursday from 5:30 to 7. Go ahead today, reach out to someone that you know that doesn't know about Rotary and get them to come to that service social with you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Harrison. And I know of a busy week next week, we're expecting at least 2 new members.
Right.
So if we got them find out, Harrison's been doing just a great job this year. Membership chair. Richard Everett, our indefatigable service chair, could not be here today, but he didn't want to report. He'll give a last detailed report at the next meeting about what a great job all of you did contributing to the book drive for the Wake Up and Read and how that was a big success this year. Next, let's see, no, sorry. Unfortunately, our service project last Saturday was rained out, the warmth for Wake, providing firewood to families in need around the county. We'll do that next year, but we're making up for it with 2 service projects in April. You'll hear more about. One, we will return to finish cleaning up our stream that was started last July. We did not do it in one day. There's a lot to do. It's a stream we adopted, and we've committed to the city for cleaning up and carrying and submitting a health report on the stream twice a year. And then we will also be asking for volunteers to work with the dental clinic that our club founded, Rotary Club of Raleigh Dental Clinic, also known as Wake Smiles. They're having an oral cancer screening event in late April. That hopefully we can have some volunteers and help them organize and conduct that. No anniversaries this week, but we do want to wish happy birthdays to Sean Doyle, Burke Haywood on the 22nd, Matt Barfield, March 24th, Elsa Silverman, March 25th, and Mark Livingston, 26. Happy birthday, Elsa.
Thank you very much.
And that will take us to our speaker today, who would like to introduce to you, and who I had a chance to meet and talk to before the meeting started today, and dealing with this very efficient professional staff up until now. But let me introduce our speaker. Chaudhuri is an attorney, a professor, politician, and Democratic member of the North Carolina Senate. He was first appointed to fill a vacancy in April of 2016. But Senator Chaudhuri was later elected and re-elected, becoming North Carolina's first Indian American state legislature. In January 2019, he was elected by his colleagues to serve as Senate Minority Whip, the second highest ranking position in the Democratic Party office. Jay was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, then moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina when he was 3. He went on to attend Davidson College, Columbia University, and the North Carolina Central University of London. In my conversations with the senator's staff, we discussed how as a club we try to remain, even though we're very much interested in the issues of the day, but nonetheless try to avoid political speakers and comments. They were very understanding with that. And Senator Chaudhuri has been gracious enough at this time to take time away from his work for the people of state. I will focus his comments today on India's growing business and cultural influence in our triangle region and the state. And I look forward to this talk. There'll be time for questions and answers afterwards. So please welcome North Carolina State Senator Chaudhuri.
Thank you for that great introduction. Let me start by saying that the earlier comment about the kingdom of Kalista, that was the name of the kingdom, was actually a Hindu kingdom. This was the fictional Hindu kingdom that I think over 30 cities entered into a sister city agreement. There were actually two citations from members of Congress about this partnership. And I will tell you, the risk of offending anybody who comes from the Northeast, James, my in-law families come from the Northeast, but I think the first partnership was with the city of New York, and I was on a text thread with my family members, and my brother-in-law said that New York and Kalisa deserve each other. I may not represent the kingdom of Lisa. I represent Senate District 15, actually in the biggest downtown Raleigh. As Tom mentioned, this is my 7th year in the North Carolina State Senate. I also serve as a Senate Democratic Whip, and I am overjoyed by the fact that we don't necessarily have to talk about politics, although there was a reference to Martin Middle School, which is where my son is right now, as I also, when I speak to children, and this is something that's important to me if you want to have discussion about politics, I always think it's important to make sure that both, or even if there are more than two sides of an issue presented. So happy to talk to you about anything as it relates to the General Assembly. But really, my purpose for being here, I will tell you, the last time I spoke to the Rotary Club, I was actually a junior in high school in Fayetteville. I was involved with my junior achievement club. And I was grabbed by my advisor to go speak to the Fayetteville Rotary Club without any notice. And it was, to this day, it was probably one of the best speeches I ever gave. I don't know if you got jokes or some of the products that we were selling in junior achievement, but I have very, very fond memories of the Rotary Club. And since we're talking about India, I will also mention that my parents come from India. They come from West Bengal, Calcutta. Many part about that is you all probably figured out from my introduction. I was born in Eastern Tennessee, in Chattanooga. But one thing that is really just fascinating me about Rotary is just how global it is in nature. So I have a lot of first cousins that have made the trip to come over to the U.S. and to the international conventions as well. So I want to do a few things in talking about the growing business and cultural influences of the Triangle. One, I just want to provide a little bit more background about myself, and some of the answers may be obvious about my interest in the business and cultural connections with India. Talk a little bit about how states can really influence foreign policy or business development, and then talk about why India, why North Carolina, and why I think there is a great partnership there. And I think how we've done a great job with that thus far. So, as Tom mentioned, I grew up in Fayetteville, pretty small Indian American community. If anybody is from Cumberland County, the thing that's always struck me with a lot of my friends here was there was also a pretty substantial Greek American community. And I always felt like the immigrant experience in Cumberland County with the Indian American, Greek American was quite similar. But for me, I think is fairly typical for a lot of children of immigrants. I think it's really until you get to college that you kind of rediscover your heritage and the culture of your motherland. For me, as Tom mentioned, I went to Davidson College. I was actually a South Asian Studies major and had the chance to study at Madras Christian College for a semester. And that ultimately really sparked my interest in ultimately getting a master's in international affairs, looking at U.S. foreign policy issues and foreign policy issues in general. some of the things, just kind of put things in perspective, and many of you already know this. You know, India, after it achieved its independence in August 1947, really, from a foreign policy perspective, kind of adhered to what we call the non-alignment movement, right? I mean, there was a group of developing countries, African and Indian countries, that said that they would stay out of the Cold War and not align with India or Russia. I think a lot of folks view that as being probably still leading towards the Soviet Union, I should say, not Russia. I think we see some of the legacies of India's relationship with Russia today and what's going on with Ukraine. But I guess it always struck me as someone who went back to India, and you know, my father gets a lot of credit for this, that why was it that the world's largest democracy, the world's oldest democracy, were so estranged? And I think what was interesting is kind of on the heels of finishing up both my undergraduate degree and then getting my master's degree, there was a real shift. It was a bipartisan shift that started with George Bush and carried on through Bill Clinton, and followed by George Bush again, and then President Obama and President Trump. Is that we've really seen a bipartisan belief that India should be a great strategic partner with the United States, especially I think today, given the strategic position where India is juxtaposed against China and Pakistan. But you know, that being said, I guess it was always curious to me why, with these two democracies, we didn't have a growing trade between the two countries. That was part of the reason I was interested in pursuing my master's degree. Now, funny story is I was on a fellowship in graduate school, and part of my fellowship is I had a year that I was able to spend working in the United States Foreign Relations Committee. And the year that I started, it was in 1994, Democrats had lost control of both chambers. And lo and behold, when the Republicans took over, it was none other than my senator, Senator Jesse Helms, who became chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. So that was an interesting experience for me, because Senator Helms, as some of you may know, started off his position as being fairly critical of India, but ultimately, as he progressed in his position as leader of the Foreign Relations Committee, also bought into this idea that there should be stronger relationships between the two countries. And so, both from a personal perspective, studying in India, my parents being from India, and then also from an academic perspective, I really felt that we could do more as a state in strengthening our ties with India. So, as you may ask, well, you know, what are you doing with a master's degree now serving in the state senate? And the question, the answer to that question is there have been opportunities to kind of where states can be involved in what takes place with another country. And you know, the most obvious examples, and I know that you had Treasurer Falwell speak to you all over the divestment policies. We have a lot of public pension funds around the country. I served as a former general counsel to our former state treasurer before Treasurer Falwell. Have divestment policies that divest from Sudan, limit divestment companies that do business with Iran, for example. Treasurer Falwell, after the Russians invaded Ukraine, actually called on Congress to amend the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, which is he called for that amendment so that pension funds could actually file lawsuits against Russian companies that public pension funds do business with. And as you may have read, after that happened, for example, Governor Cooper said that they were no longer going to carry Russian vodka in our ABC stores. And so, you know, these are small, I think, gestures that we can see states be involved in when we're dealing with other countries. And I just kind of put that in perspective because it really brings us to the question of what has North Carolina done in relationship to India, and why is that important for me? So, you know, as quick background, you know, I've been redistricted in my state senate district 4 times in the last 6 years. And because of the way redistricting works, redistricting tends to impact members who come from larger urban counties such as Wake County. And so my senate district has gone in every single direction of the county. Currently, it is much more of a downtown Raleigh district with points of carry. But when I first ran for the state senate, it actually ran from downtown Raleigh all the way to the town of Cary in Morrisville. as we talk about the cultural influence of the triangle, one thing that was always interesting for me running for the seat was there was an opportunity to represent what I call, you know, 7th generation North Carolinians that are inside the Beltline, but also 1st generation North Carolinians, immigrants that came from India that lived in the more secure area. And one of the things that in the process of ultimately being elected was, what could we do? What could I do better to make sure that there was more of a presence and to try to strengthen the relationship with North Carolina and India? So one, we can talk about trade and values. As I mentioned, India is the largest democracy. India, the United States, is the oldest democracy. There is a shared value, not only of democracy, but rule-based international systems that can promote global security, stability, and economic prosperity. And today, the United States has now displaced China as India's largest trading partner, doing a total of $157 billion in business. The U.S. is India's largest export market. So one of the things that we were able to do in the General Assembly, which was incorporated in the 2017 budget, was we actually had the economic partnership development of North Carolina, which is the commerce, the kind of the private commerce arm of the state, established a trade office in Bangalore, India. And we have had trade offices. We have trade offices in Europe. We have them in Japan. But we've never had one in India. And the budget actually created a position, a trade office in Bangalore. There's a gentleman that works there now that promotes and advertises the companies to do business in North Carolina. And what is interesting to me, and I'll talk a little bit about the results of what's happening at that trade office, but North Carolina, from the perspective as a state in the South, we've really been last in our strategy pursuing a trade policy or trying to pursue business through India. Mark Warner, the former governor, when he was governor of Virginia, was actually the first governor in the country to lead a state delegation to India. Governor Nikki Haley, who former governor of South Carolina, when she was governor, and also been quite aggressive in promoting foreign direct investment in India. But while we may be last in the South to kind of pursue and establish a trade office, I argue that we are first in the resources and the assets that we have as a state, because part of my argument has been that I think we're a great match for the businesses that you see coming out of India versus what we have in North Carolina. So what does that include? It includes things like information technology, clean energy, pharmaceuticals, higher education, textiles, agriculture, aerospace, manufacturing. So if you look at just a sector match with the state of North Carolina with India, I would argue that there's a great match between our state and the country. And so, as I mentioned, the partnership ultimately, because we allocated an office in Bangalore to set up that office, was open in November of 2018. And as a result of that, it led to 325 leads, 67 developed into qualified recruitments, compared to 55 in 2017. And one of those leads was a lead that I had the opportunity to be part of, which was the establishment of the Park Forge manufacturing facility, which is in Lee County. And as some of you may have read, now Park Forge is now expanding into electric vehicle auto manufacturing, which is they're putting another $1 billion in their facility down there. But the statistic that I'm most excited about is if you look from 2014 to 2018, North Carolina has announced $209 million in capital investments and 37 new jobs. We are ranked, during that time period, we ranked #1 among all 50 states for the total number of jobs in connection with foreign direct investment, #2 in the South, and #3 for the total nationwide capital investments. So I think that from my perspective, I think that's something that we will continue to see because of the match in the sectors. I think that the secret's out about the state and the fact that this is a great place to do business for Indian companies. I think the secret's already been out here around the country, but we'll have some of the other job announcements. But I'm very, very excited and proud about the fact that we have this office in Bangalore, but I think we'll continue to lead in more foreign direct investments here in North Carolina. First thing to mention. Second thing, which Tom had asked me to talk a little about, which is related to the business ties, is direct flights to India. As you probably know, The Raleigh Airport is looking to expand its runway. Part of the reason they need to expand that runway is if they want to do long haul flights, such as flights to China, they need to expand the runway. There was a town hall meeting regarding doing direct flights. I am not optimistic about direct flights, and I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of doing direct flights to India, although there are plenty of studies that show that direct flights can result in additional businesses. But I think if you have a good connecting flight in Europe, we can still address the issue of direct flights. But I would stay tuned. I think the Raleigh-Durham folks will have some announcements that are related to connecting flights with Raleigh into Europe that can make the travel time to India shorter. A few other things to mention for you all from a cultural, let me mention one other thing from a business and cultural perspective, because I know you have Marie Claire Freeman from Sister Cities Initiative coming to speak. I had the opportunity to help host the mayor of Hyderabad, which really, along with Bangalore, is probably the most prominent information technology city in the country. Funny story about the mayor. It is a woman. She actually spent almost 20 years here in Cary working at Duke and decided to go back to India because her family comes from a long line of politicians. Her father actually serves in the upper house of parliament in India, but so she made a trip here. We met with Governor Cooper. We are hoping to, at some point, to enter into a Sister Cities initiative, so we can use that as an opportunity to deepen ties between Hyderabad and the city of Raleigh, which I also think would hopefully have some good business that can create some business opportunities as well. On the cultural side, I think, as some of you know, we have close to 100,000 Indian Americans that live here in the area. And if you don't know this, I mean, the city of Morrisville today is almost 45% Indian American, which is an astounding number as a percentage. They have 2 members in the city of the town council that are Indian American. And if you're wondering why that's the case, my theory on this is because, again, having grown up in Fayetteville, both the Triangle and part of Eastern North Carolina, for those Indian Americans that were Hindu faith, there did not exist a Hindu temple. And there was a family based here in Raleigh, sent all 5 of their children to NC State, by the way. But they had bought a plot of land and ultimately led the initiative to build a Hindu temple in Morrisville. And I'm really convinced that the establishment of that Hindu temple is what created more immigration into the Morrisville area. And now, if you drive down Aviation Parkway, there's actually 3 Hindu temples there. But that, I think, has led, coupled with the businesses that we have in the park, has really led to a boom of Indian Americans in the Morrisville area. So, I think as a result, if you go to Morrisville, you'll see the Holy Festival that was just celebrated this past weekend. There's a lot of celebrations of Diwali in October, of the Festival of Lights. I had the opportunity. One of the first things that I did when I was elected, I asked Governor Cooper to celebrate the Festival of Raleigh. He issued a proclamation as governor celebrating that, and also hosted the Raleigh celebration at the mansion. So I share these with you because a lot of what we're seeing in North Carolina, particularly in Triangle, was the Indian American community becoming more and more part of the mainstream North Carolina fabric and culture. A couple of other things I will mention to you all. There's an interesting, the other thing I will mention to you is also paying attention to the influence of food in this area. So many of you know Chi Kumar, who is the James Beard, the finalist for the James Beard Award. She had her restaurant right across the street here. But she, along with a couple of other Indian American chefs, have really blended Southern food and Indian food together. The Southern Foodway Alliance, which is based in Oxford, Mississippi, actually was so moved by this idea of Indian and Southern food being essentially fused together, as they did a Brown in the South tour, which they've done now for 3 years, where they've taken chefs of Indian descent and toured them around the South where they would fix different dishes that would be influenced both by India and the South. And so to me, again, it's just a reminder of the influence that you see of the Indian community here in Southern, on Southern food. If anybody's been to Chai Pani in Asheville, which is also James Beard, where you see the influence there as well. And, the last thing I will say, James just had an artist at his gallery, again, is culturally what we see influence of the art. I think, my hope is, and one of the things that I would like to see us do is bring a modern Indian art exhibit. The fact that we have some major technology companies like HCL and Infosys, some of the largest Indian global technology companies, I think there's an opportunity for us to leverage those assets to try to bring more cultural influences here in the area, particularly in the arts. And James just had an artist who was 10 or 11 years old, an Indian artist from India. Like, I guess the paintings were selling for anywhere between $3,000 to $10,000. It's kind of an international sensation. If everybody gets on YouTube, you should take a look at the artwork they have. But again, I think it's just another example of what we're seeing in the landscape here in the triangle. So, with that being said, I am optimistic and bullish that we'll continue to see more presence of Indian Americans and Indian American culture here in the triangle. Happy to answer any questions, Tom.
Questions, anybody? Eric?
I'll ask you to put on your foreign relations hat for a minute, maybe tie it back to today's topic. Yeah. Take a look at the alignment or possible alignment between Russia and China. What does that represent from the standpoint of stability, threat, military threat, economic threat, and then how are the people in North Carolina?
What was the last part of the question?
How does that affect people in North Carolina?
Well, so let's start with the first part of that question. I think the alliance is worrisome to me because I think it gives the Russians an additional ally in supplying money for them to continue the war in Ukraine. I think that's problematic. And when you add India to the mix, I've kind of alluded to this, right? India has always had this position of being non-aligned. There's a strong relationship between the Prime Minister Modi and Putin. And I know the Biden administration is trying to use that as a point of leveraging and influencing the Indian government. My fear is I don't know if we're going to be able to get the government of India on the side where we need them to be. And yeah, I was talking to one of our trade representatives about this before I came over here. That is a sticking point in the relationship, and it's actually a sticking point of why you don't see more defense arrangements or even defense contract opportunities that we might see between both countries. And so, how does that affect us here in North Carolina? Maybe not in an immediate perspective, except for the fact that I think we're all feeling it in our pocketbooks based on the spillover of what's happening with wheat prices and everything else that's taking place in Ukraine.
Yep. So last week we talked to Chancellor Wilson from NC State. So there's a fair number of Indian students coming over here to be educated, especially in the STEM fields. And I guess a fair number are staying here, but a fair number are going back.
Yeah.
Is there still an attraction you perceive on the educational front from the United States, but that even in the medical field, we were talking about it, and there's a lot of Indian folks working in the medical field in the United States, but I sense that a lot of them still are going back to India. So do you think that tide are more of them tending to come to the United States, or is it reversed to be more of going back to India?
It's a great question. I think as a general rule, the attraction to be here the way it was for my father it's changed. I think part of that is a reflection of the economy and the opportunity to go back to India. Part of the reason that I have championed trade opportunities for North Carolina companies in India is it now has the world's largest middle class and has a larger middle class than all of Europe combined. But I think to your question, we had the first wave of immigration that came in 1965 on the heels of the Immigration Nationality Act of 65, which is what brought my father over, came as a companion bill to the Civil Rights Act of 64. And you had another wave of those that came in the 80s and early 90s. And I don't know what the answer is to your question. My sense is that we're seeing more Indian graduate students come here, get their education and go back. I mean, I think there are some that stay here. I think from an economic development perspective, and I just met with some modelers last week, and they were talking about immigration as a way of economic development. But, from my perspective, I mean, 1 in every 4 startups in this country are immigrant founded. And I think that the opportunity to attract and retain some of the best in practice, particularly those that are coming to our universities here, is a great way for us to continue to grow our economy. And maybe that should be something that we should think about as far as the strategy. One of the things when I was in the treasurer's office, and I believe UNC had done this, is they tried to tap into their alumni base in China, recognizing that there were connections back in China and opportunities to kind of tap into that innovation space. At a minimum, I think that these universities should be tapping into the alumni network even back in India as a way to either leverage capital or bring new ideas.
Senator, thank you very much. Thank you.
Token of appreciation, we'd like to have our covered Rotary company mugs with our 4-way test on that. And we very much appreciate you being here. And once again, just like. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll move on to the 4-way test and we can things we think, say and do. Is it true? Is it all certain? Well, we don't do better questions. Sure.